The grumpiest dungeon keeper met the most annoying princess. She brought cookies to a dungeon full of monsters. Episode 2. Princess Eloan had learned many things from her mother. She knew how to curtsy without wobbling, how to smile politely while courtiers droned on about grain tariffs, and, most crucially, how to bake cookies so perfect they could make even the sternest knight reconsider his life choices. Queen Serene called them comfort biscuits. Eloan called them Phase 1. The palace kitchens smelled of honey, cinnamon, and warm butter that morning. Sunlight poured through tall arched windows, glinting off copper pans as Eloan stood on a sturdy stool beside the counter. Flour dusted her nose like fresh snow, and her sleeves, rolled far too high, were already streaked with dough. "Remember," Queen Serene said softly, guiding her daughter's small hands through the kneading, "you can't rush the dough. Patience makes all the difference." "Yes, Mama," Eloan replied with earnest gravity, even as her mind raced ahead to things far less patient. They worked side by side while servants passed with fond, indulgent smiles. The queen hummed an old lullaby, utterly unaware that Eloan's bright eyes kept flicking toward the window, counting minutes like a conspirator. When the cookies emerged from the oven, golden and fragrant, Queen Serene arranged them carefully in a woven basket and draped a clean cloth over the top. "Now," she said, "you may take these to the garden. The groundskeepers have had a long morning." Eloan nodded solemnly. "Of course." She lifted the basket with both hands, kissed her mother's cheek, and walked calmly toward the garden doors. The moment she rounded the corner and slipped out of sight, she pivoted sharply, darted down a narrow servants' corridor, and headed for the stone stairs that spiraled downward. Down, down, down. The dungeon welcomed her like a grumpy old acquaintance. Cold, damp, and faintly disapproving. Torch flames bent toward her as though curious about the warm scent trailing in her wake. Somewhere deeper in the shadows, something growled. Something else answered with a curious huff. Eloan marched onward, undaunted. Garrick Stonejaw heard the bells first. He stiffened mid-polish of his axe, shoulders tensing. "No," he muttered. "No, no, no." She appeared at the foot of the stairs, basket nearly as wide as her torso, cheeks flushed with triumph. "I brought cookies," Eloan announced proudly. Garrick stared at her as though she had sprouted wings. "You cannot bring baked goods into a high-security containment facility." She tilted her head and peered into the nearest cell. "This one has horns. It also has a venomous tail. Does it like cinnamon?" "Princess." She lifted the cloth. A wave of warm, sweet aroma rolled down the corridor like an ambush. The dungeon reacted instantly. Chains rattled. Glowing eyes appeared in the gloom. A chorus of low snarls, curious sniffs, and hopeful whines rippled through the cells. Garrick swore under his breath. "You've activated them." Eloan looked positively delighted. "They're interested." A scaled creature pressed its snout against the bars, pupils dilating. From a neighboring cell came a cautious, gravelly voice. "Are those honey?" Garrick whirled. "Do not speak to the prisoners." "I'm not a prisoner," the voice corrected mildly. "I'm on probation." Eloan waved cheerfully. "Hello, I'm Eloan." "Princess," Garrick snapped. "Behind me. Now." Too late. A massive shadow shifted in the deepest cell. The stone floor trembled as something ancient exhaled. From the darkness, a dragon, old, scarred, and bound by glowing runes, opened one molten amber eye. "Cookies?" It rumbled, voice like distant thunder. "I remember cookies." Garrick moved in a blur, planting himself between Eloan and the cells, axe raised, stance wide. No feeding the ancient fire-breathing horrors. Eloan peered around his bulk. "What if they're polite?" The dragon snorted. Sparks danced across the floor. "I can be polite." Garrick didn't flinch. "No." Eloan sighed theatrically. "Garrick." He glanced down despite himself. She held up a single perfect cookie, steam still curling from its edges. "Just one." He hesitated. The dragon leaned forward as far as its chains allowed. The horned creature pressed harder against its bars. Even the venom-tailed beast tilted its head with cautious hope. Garrick closed his eyes briefly, as though praying for strength. "Fine," he growled. 1. through the bars. If anyone so much as breathes fire, I end it. Elowen beamed like sunrise. She approached the nearest cell and carefully extended the cookie. A clawed hand, surprisingly gentle, accepted it and retreated into shadow. A pause. Then delighted chewing. That is excellent, the creature admitted, stunned. Murmurs of approval spread like wildfire. Another cookie passed through bars. Then another. The dragon received the last one. It sniffed delicately, then took the treat with surprising reverence before biting down. A deep, contented rumble filled the dungeon, like a mountain settling into sleep. Chains slackened. Growls softened into sighs. The entire corridor seemed to exhale. Garrick lowered his axe inch by inch, disbelief carved across his craggy features. "What?" he said at last. "Did you just do?" Elowen shrugged. "Mama says people are less angry when their stomachs are full." The dragon gave a smoky chuckle. "Your mother is a wise queen." Garrick rubbed a hand over his face. "You cannot keep doing this." "I can," Elowen replied cheerfully. "And I will." He surveyed the cells. Monsters content, distracted, almost docile. "The paperwork," he muttered. "This is going to be a nightmare." Elowen patted his armored forearm with sticky fingers. "I'll bring extra next time. For you too. There will be no next." She was already skipping toward the stairs, basket swinging lightly. "Same time tomorrow," she called over her shoulder. Garrick watched her go, bells fading upward like mischievous laughter. The dragon curled back into its corner, eyes half-lidded in satisfaction. The dungeon breathed again. Slower, calmer. Garrick exhaled a long, defeated breath. "I hate how effective this is," he admitted to the empty air. Far above, Queen Serene smiled fondly in the palace garden, certain her daughter was performing small acts of kindness for weary groundskeepers. She was half right.
That's the tale for today. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so the next story finds you. Thanks for listening, traveler. Until the next fire is lit, see you soon.